They completed science and research investigations. We are targeting splashdown off the coast of Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time. The next major milestone that we'll look ahead towards is what we call loss of signal, or LOS, when we won't have communications with the crew because they will be re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And during this process, there is plasma that builds up around that heat shield. So we are not able to communicate with the crew, but we are anticipating to regain communications with the crew at a short time from now at 2:51 p.m. Pacific time today.
As we said before, everything continues to look good for the return of the Crew 9 team. We are about to go into that period of loss of signal. Once we get views of the crew inside the capsule, once again, we will be sure to bring those to you. But that period of time is when plasma is building up on the exterior of the capsule, generating heat in excess of 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So we are unable to communicate or command the spacecraft at that time. And that includes, unfortunately, video feeds as well. So as soon as we get the views back inside Dragon, we will bring those to you. But until then, we are going to stand by and continue to monitor the progress of Dragon. Like Sandra just said, we are anticipating the blackout period to begin at 2:51 p.m. Pacific time, 5:51 p.m. Eastern time. This will last for several minutes. It's not super exact, even though we are predicting acquisition of signal, or AOS, to come back at 5:51 p.m. Eastern time. In the past, we have regained communication sometimes a little bit earlier than that, so we'll probably start to hear Core begin to hail Crew Dragon a minute or two prior to that anticipated acquisition of signal. But right now, Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander are seated in their seats inside Dragon Freedom. Their visors are down, and they have put away or stored the tablets they had located on their upper leg to monitor Dragon's progress. Now they will be utilizing the touchscreen displays, where the current operation and future operations will be displayed as they are able to monitor Dragon's progress continually. As I said before, Dragon is autonomous, meaning it is flying itself. So the crew stands by and monitors, and those touchscreen displays are what will be allowing them to do so and prepare for events such as parachute deploy.
And while on board the International Space Station, Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander contributed to over 900 hours of science and research investigations, which is really the key purpose of the International Space Station. Now, the International Space Station is celebrating a major milestone this year, where they will be celebrating 25 years of continuous human presence in November. So if you're younger than 25 years, you've never known a day where there hasn't been a human living and working aboard the International Space Station, contributing to key science and research investigations that impact our lives here on Earth. There's research being done on Parkinson's, on osteoporosis, on cancer research, and a variety of other studies. Additionally, the microgravity laboratory provides a jumping off point for us as we venture back to the moon and onto Mars through longer duration space flights. One such example that the crew worked on during this mission was an alternative exercise device. In microgravity, the crew has to exercise for about 2 hours a day because they're not having the effects of gravity on their body. So to prevent bone and muscle loss, we counteract that with 2 hours of exercise per day. On board the International Space Station, they have 3 ways in which they can exercise. They have a bike, they have a treadmill, and they have a similar to a weightlifting machine that counteracts the microgravity environment. But a particular experiment that this crew tested out was a combination of all 3 of those in one smaller device. And this is really critical as we continue on to the moon, Mars, and beyond, because space is really important in spacecraft. So if we have something smaller that the crew might be able to utilize, that can potentially help us venture out even further into the solar system. So science is really the name of the game when it comes to the International Space Station. Some of the other science highlights that took place during this increment that are particularly interesting to me was we had the first wooden satellite that was deployed. This is a study to see if other materials might be more resourceful or renewable in space. So I'm really excited to see the results of that one as well. Additionally, we had a couple of spacewalks that took place to not only provide maintenance to the International Space Station, but also where we swabbed the outside of the space station near vents to see if any microbes that we all have microbes on us, to see if any of those could survive in the harsh environment of space, which again is very important for us to know and understand as we continue to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
Very exciting stuff. Now, at this point, we have now entered the communications blackout period for the Dragon spacecraft. This lasts approximately 7 minutes due to plasma formation around the spacecraft itself. During this time, no vehicle telemetry is received by mission control or the recovery team, and no external commanding of the vehicle or voice communication is possible. But as a reminder, Dragon is designed to fly itself. During reentry, the vehicle will be slowing down from orbital velocity, which is approximately 17,500 miles per hour. The top temperature that Dragon will experience upon reentry is 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. This blackout period, as I said before, we expect it to last about 7 minutes today, concluding at 5:51 p.m. Eastern Time or 2:51 p.m. Pacific Time. We right there have our first view of Dragon Freedom coming home to Earth.
And that view is from the WB-57, which is one of NASA's high-altitude planes that is tracking. Now, because of the way that this camera is configured, it does look like it is dark, but it is indeed daytime, and you're beginning to see that plasma trail as Dragon re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. All of that is expected. We are anticipating an acquisition of signal around 2:51 p.m. Pacific Time, so just minutes from now, and you may hear the core begin to hail out or call Dragon for communications and see if we can potentially get communications with them a little bit earlier. Following this, we'll have two events in rapid succession. We'll have the drogue parachutes deploy at 2:53 p.m. Pacific, followed by the mains just 1 minute later at 2:54 p.m. Pacific Time, ahead of a splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific Time off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
Obviously,
is that it coming in?
Yeah, that's it coming in, which is cool. It's pretty cool looking that's doing it.
Pretty incredible views of the Dragon spacecraft making its way home back to planet Earth with the Crew 9 astronauts on board. Once again, this view is coming from the WB-57 plane. That heat shield we can see doing magnificent work as it works to
Freedom, SpaceX, Comcheck.
All right, we're going to start hearing the SpaceX crew operations resource engineer.
I'll get it.
Freedom is with you.
Elon Musk is a hero.
4.16. Enjoying the ride.
What? MSNBC is covering this?
Copy that, Freedom.
I don't think they have a choice at this point. They're so over the line now. I don't think MSNBC
Great news
has
there
a choice
from
but to
Commander
cover it.
Nick Hague reporting back.
We see a healthy flight computer. Expect automated chute deployment.
Freedom copies.
Like we said before, things moving very quickly as Dragon Freedom makes its way home.
Water, please. Thank you
Next
very
event
much.
coming up will be deployment of the
You're
drogue
awesome.
parachutes. This occurs around 18,000 feet.
GPS has converged. Expect nominal altitude
This is
for
awesome.
drogue
I
chute
love
deployment.
seeing this. The fact that we have an individual private businessman going up there saving astronauts is cool. But I do love the fact that it's a joint
We're about
NASA
2 minutes
SpaceX
away from deployment of
thing,
those
and
drogue parachutes.
We're actually headed back
Now
to
the
space.
heat shield is
awesome to me.
continuing
I just
to
think
work
that's
to
awesome.
slow the vehicle down. That entry period,
Because
the Dragon spacecraft went from
There's so
orbital
much
velocity about
benefit to
17,500
space
miles per hour
exploration and
down to about
the moon and then
350 miles per
beyond.
hour, so it
You're
really
talking
gives you a
about raw
sense of
materials, just
why
raw
that plasma
materials
builds up
alone
on the
that's sitting
exterior
out
of the
there,
capsule,
like
thanks
on
to
Mars.
the heat shield and the
No
work
telling
that it
what kind
does.
of minerals
Those drogue
on that
parachutes will
planet
slow it
are
down
alone.
from 350 to about 119 miles per hour. We can see
15 kilometers. Brace for drogue window.
we can see seat rotation happening inside the capsule. Great to get those first views of our crew members.
So I'm excited about it.
Once again, the capsules are going about 350 miles per hour when the drogues are deployed. Those drogue parachutes that we manufacture here in-house are going to slow the spacecraft down to 119 miles per hour. And that is when we will see the main parachutes deploy, and that occurs about 6,000 feet above the ocean's surface.
And we are expecting drogue deployment at 2:53 p.m. Pacific, so we should see
Look
it
at
any
that,
second now.
man.
And there
That's
you are
cool.
getting a great view of Crew 9
That is
inside
cool right there.
Dragon Freedom
Watch
as it
it falling
returns
down.
back to Earth. We are
Shoots to
awaiting the
deploy.
drogue deploys. This view coming from the WB-57
I mean,
high
look at
altitude
this.
plane.
Boom.
And there you see it on your screen, drogue deployment.
Drogue descent rate nominal.
Ooh, there they are. Look at those shoots coming out. That's awesome.
You can hear the crowd
That is
here.
awesome right there, folks. Take a look at that. That is really cool.
Capsule that they're in?
So, yeah, that's
Crowd here
that is
very
pretty cool.
excited as Dragon Freedom continues to make its way back to planet Earth.
How cool. The view from the capsule. I mean, you know they got to be happy. After being up there all that time, getting stranded in space.
Step will stand by for
And then here
the
we
main
go.
deployment of the parachutes. The mains are quite a bit larger. You'll be able to notice the difference on your screen once they deploy, and they continue to ensure that the Dragon spacecraft slows down even further. As we mentioned, Freedom will be traveling 16 miles per hour when it splashes down off the coast
That's
of
just cool.
Tallahassee, Florida, here at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon. And there we go.
We have
There's the
visual
main
on 4
shoots.
healthy
Look at
mains.
that. Bam. 4 healthy big
That
shoots
view
slowing
is
it down
from
dramatically.
inside.
Freedom copy.
That's really
That view is
cool.
from inside one of the buckets where the
That's
parachutes
really
are
cool.
located. So we see a great view there of the reefing on those parachutes, and as
Heck
those
yeah.
those main
Splashdown
parachutes begin
coming.
to inflate fully, 4 beautiful, healthy mains.
Here it is.
Now awaiting visuals of
That's big
Splashdown.
contact.
Freedom 1000.
Oh, I love it.
We'll start to hear Commander Nick Hague.
Absolutely.
Copy
love it.
1000.
As we heard right there, Commander Nick Hague will be calling out the altitude of the Dragon capsule from here on out. Landing in water is simpler and provides more margin against unlikely parachute issues. You can see those parachutes continuing to slow the Dragon capsule down.
And if you're
It's
just
just
joining us,
crazy how
we're
fast
looking
it
at
comes in. and
800
then
meters.
a live view of Crew 9, just minutes away from splashing
800
down off the
meters.
coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Splashdown 2 minutes from now at 2:57 p.m. Pacific. We do have 4 healthy mains really doing the job there. Just breathtaking
beautiful.
views of a calm, glass-like ocean off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Crew 9 just minutes away from splashing down.
This is really such an incredible shot. That
Copy
was
600.
That was a live view from our recovery vessel, Megan, which is stationed a couple miles away from the
Yeah, I
old
agree. I'm
Splashdown
curious
site.
about that myself. How
We can
long will
see
it
the
take them
crew
to
there
acclimate to having
using
gravity
their
again? Because they've
restraints
been without it
as
for a
resting
while.
places for their arms. They were just
So
in space
I believe
moments
the
ago.
thing is, when you're that
so
long
their
in
arms
space,
are able to float freely.
you expand. I believe
400
because
meters.
there's nothing to compress your joints and the tissue and all that thing.
This is
together.
a
So I
gorgeous
think your body
bluebird day here that we
elongates.
have for the splashdown
I
of
believe it's
Crew
how it
9.
works.
It's incredible to think that the Dragon capsule just minutes
is
ago was going
kinda cool.
over
It's kinda weird, but it's kinda cool.
17,000 miles per hour, and now gently coasting to a soft splashdown.
It looks like it's going to slow
200.
motion. I mean, it's really not, but it really looks
Copy
like it
200
is.
meters. Brace for splashdown.
As you can see there
here
on
we
your
go.
screen, continuing to monitor progress
Oh, yeah.
of the Dragon spacecraft. And we're going to stand by for splashdown located in the Gulf of America off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
Things like this make you proud to be an American. Not just an American, but a human being when they pull stuff off like this.
And Splashdown,
It ain't about
Crew
anything
9
else
back
but
on
saving
Earth.
people and doing something that's unique. That was great. That was awesome. What a cool looking sight. And look how close they were. They knew exactly where the sucker was coming down. Look how close they are to that capsule.
Freedom, Splashdown. Good main release.
Copy Splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
It is,
If you're not
amazing
excited about that, you see something
water
like this
ride.
happen, that doesn't excite you a little bit.
Capsule full of
Something's wrong with you. I
ear
think
to ear.
that is a huge, huge accomplishment right there. That is crazy how big of a deal that is. That right there. That's wild. The
And
capsule was
as you can
pristine
see
when it
on your
left Earth.
screen, we have visual
It was pristine when
confirmation
it left
of
the,
Splashdown. Dragon Freedom
ISS
has
station.
returned home, and NASA astronauts.
System safety verifications are in progress. We'll report
Hot.
back when recovery personnel are
The
en route.
atmosphere is just burning it up like that.
Understand. And, we're in section
Yeah,
2
that's
of
cool.
4.800 landing response.
Didn't they land in the Gulf of America?
Looking for your word.
Isn't that where they landed at? I don't know.
Necessary.
I did not catch that part.
In the distance, we can see the recovery vessel making its way.
Copy, you're in section 2 for the environmental assessment in 4.800. That is not necessary today.
I'd be like, guys, y'all are too slow. Y'all need to hurry up and get here and let me out of this damn capsule.
Understand.
I'm ready to get out of it.
So what are they
Yep.
So we will continue to have communications between the Corps and Nick Hague, the commander of Crew Dragon Freedom, which just splashed down 2 minutes ago off the coast of
That water's
Tallahassee,
beautiful.
Florida. Dragon Freedom
Wow,
has
look how
returned
blue
home
and
with NASA
pretty it is out
astronauts
there.
Nick Hague, Sonny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. They're back on Earth after approximately 17 hours of a return journey from space.
The SpaceX
they've
recovery
been in this
ship
capsule
and
17
team have
hours.
been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and they will now make
that
their
little
way
bitty
to
thing
the
right there.
splashdown location. The teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes or so to make their way
And
to.
SpaceX Freedom. Pretty sure we're in stable 1.
Copy, stable 1. We see the same.
30 minutes.
It's going
Dang.
to take about 30 minutes for the recovery team to make their way over to Nick, Sonny, Butch, and
seems like a
Alexander,
long
who
time to
are
have to wait
still
after
seated
you
and
got down there in
secured
that water.
inside that Dragon spacecraft there on your screen. Incredible views there of that thermal protection system, or TPS. That Dragon
astronaut, you've got
capsule was
absolute balls of
pristine,
steel,
white color
titanium,
before it departed the
non-meltables.
station.
I mean,
And we
you're
can
just-
see how the reentry phase,
Your bravery is on
the
another
thermal
level.
protection system did its job. Now, if
'Cause
you're
you're
wondering
going up
what
in
that
these things
hole, that like bucket
and hoping
area
not to
is,
die.
that is underneath the side hatch. That is where the main parachutes were stored. So when we saw the Dragon capsule docked at station, it looked very different. The panel that protects and covers the main parachutes, that was still intact, as well as the panels that enclose where the drogue parachutes are located. We can see those fast
Freedom,
boats.
SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach.
Boy, they get there
Expect
quick
personnel
now.
alongside in the next few minutes.
That's wild. That's cool.
Freedom copies.
I'm not
We can see those fast boats. We weren't kidding when we said they were fast. While it does take about 30 minutes for the main recovery vessel to make its way over to the capsule, these fast boats will be doing a couple of things simultaneously. A couple of them are going to be working to retrieve the parachutes that you see in the background there of this drone shot. Those parachutes will be retrieved from the ocean surface. We want to make sure we are able to pull those out. The recovery vessel there closest to the spacecraft is going to be performing some
Rod, get
safety
all
checks.
friction off of there.
We can see there they're using an instrument that is basically working to detect if there are any hypergolic vapors or fumes that are still residing in and or around the Draco thruster nozzles or outlets. The hypergolic fuel, which is necessary for on-orbit burns to maneuver the spacecraft. Unfortunately, those hypergolics
all those haters out there
are unable to be breathed. They are toxic, and so this team here is doing those initial safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the rest of the recovery team to approach.
There's so many
spacecraft.
people out there not wanting to give Elon his due for helping get this done.
They're also checking to make sure that any residuals from the pyros are safe and are not going to cause any issues. We can see the team working their way around the spacecraft to do these basically these sniff tests on all of those Draco thrusters.
And as we continue to await the recovery of our Dragon spacecraft with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov inside, Dragon has autonomously completed several steps to safe itself following splashdown. We are continuing to see Dragon in what is known as stable 1 configuration. That's kind of the ideal configuration following splashdown. It's upright, and the Dragon capsule is in the right configuration for it to be hoisted into the recovery vessel Megan, which you do see a little ways off in your screen approaching. Dragon will continue to remain live on air with you through that recovery process, all the way through the point where the crew is extracted from the Dragon spacecraft.
To be an astronaut.
Now, if you are just joining us, the mission has gone smoothly so far. Dragon successfully splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon.
Approximately 17 hours prior to splashdown, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station, completed a series of departure burns, jettisoned its trunk section, and performed its final burn, the deorbit burn. This placed the Dragon spacecraft on a trajectory toward Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon successfully re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, followed by deployment of its parachutes to slow the spacecraft down to a gentle splashdown. We're now going to follow the
Freedom. Hypergol sweeps and unfired ordnance checks are nominal. Rigging is in progress. Approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. Stand by for PMC with SpaceX flight surgeon.
And so what we did just hear there was communications that those hypergol checks were complete. They didn't find any of that upon those checks, so we'll continue to move through the timeline. Next up is a process called rigging, which you see happening right now on your screen. This is when a SpaceX recovery personnel actually works to climb aboard the capsule and work through procedures ahead of lifting onto the nest of the recovery vessel Megan. We heard it's going to be about 25 minutes or so until that lift actually takes place.
So they have to keep them in the pod until they lift it on the boat?
Okay, Freedom, the next call will
They
be
used
from
to
the
do
SpaceX
that.
flight
So
surgeon
whenever
on
a
Dragon
capsule
and
was
Ground
splashed
Private.
down back in the old days, you popped the door open right there and you brought them out onto the boats and stuff and flew away.
Callouts there indicating that the crew
I'm
will have the
assuming it's a
opportunity
whole
to
different
do
thing
a
now.
quick check-in with the SpaceX flight surgeon. This is standard procedure for every Dragon spacecraft when it returns to Earth. It's just an initial check-in, make sure everybody is doing okay. They will also have another check-in with the flight surgeon once they are on board that recovery vessel that you see there in the background. We can now see that SpaceX recovery team member they're on top of the Dragon spacecraft. They are going to be working to install plugs in the Draco thrusters to ensure that none of those
Guaranteed Trump speaks tonight.
and to ensure that no more hypergolic fumes or vapors come out from the spacecraft. They'll also place harnessing around the spacecraft that are required in order to lift it out of the water. Go ahead, Sandra.
Continuing to get some views of the recovery personnel, both the main recovery vessel Megan, as well as some of those fast boats that we've discussed previously. It looks like just a beautiful day there out off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Weather was pristine. We were able to get undocked from the International Space Station as expected at 10:05 p.m. Pacific time yesterday evening, and Crew Dragon has since completed steps ahead of its splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, and we're now stepping through procedures to get Dragon hoisted up onto the Megan recovery vessel and get the crew extracted out of the spacecraft.
Yeah, curious to see.
And you did see some of the parachutes that were near the spacecraft. Upon detection of landing, Dragon automatically releases those main parachutes to prevent wind from pulling the spacecraft. Dragon then automatically safes any pyrotechnics that may still be present on the vehicle and may automatically perform additional minor system reconfigurations. The astronauts will remain seated and in their suits at this point, but the onboard air conditioning keeps things temperature controlled inside the spacecraft so the crew remains comfortable, and the communication systems.
Freedom, SpaceX, ComCheck.
SpaceX, this is Freedom. We loud and clear.
Copy that, Freedom. Have you loud and clear as well, and Dragon to ground is no longer private.
Like a Coke. Please bring those guys. Tell those guys to bring me a Coke.
Understand. Thank you.
As we saw there on the screen, we have a couple of fast boats in the recovery fleet that have quickly moved into the splashdown location. They are being followed by one of the main recovery vessels, which will move into position upwind of the spacecraft. The two fast boats have very specific roles. Excuse me. The first approach is focused on immediate safety inspection, as we saw. They do this for spacecraft integrity and checking for any presence of those hypergolic propellant vapors.
Well, that was awesome.
And this ensures that it is safe for the recovery vessel to approach Dragon. Once Dragon is cleared for full approach, as we heard is the case today, the team begins rigging the spacecraft for water recovery by the recovery ship. The second fast boat is responsible for parachute recovery and also serves as a redundant boat to the first one that makes the initial approach to the Dragon spacecraft. As we saw a little bit earlier, we were also able to see one of the recovery team members get on a jet ski to help gather up the parachutes that were automatically detached from the Dragon spacecraft upon splashdown.
And it will take a little over 10 minutes for the recovery crew to complete their safety checks. Once complete, the team will begin preparing Dragon to be lifted, and as you see, they are preparing for that to take place at this point. As part of the preparation for this lift, one member of the recovery team has climbed on top of the spacecraft already so they can attach Dragon's hoist rings and connect to the lifting lines. It will take us less than an hour to raise Dragon to the recovery boat and remove the crew from the spacecraft. After medical checkouts, the crew will return to land within 4 hours by helicopter. And if no additional medical assistance is needed, the crew will board a waiting NASA plane and depart for Houston.
Yep, that's wild.
And as we continue to await Dragon to be hoisted up onto the ship, we have a very special treat. NASA Public Affairs Officer Jaden Jennings, who is actually on the recovery vessel and had a bird's eye view of the splashdown today. Jaden, how are you? How was the view from the recovery vessel?
Hi, Sandra. How do you hear me?
I've got you loud and clear, Jaden. It's so great to hear you.
Awesome. So Splashdown, Sandra, was nothing
Freedom,
short of
be advised.
spectacular.
We are transitioning the forward link. Comm will be unavailable for approximately 5 minutes.
Freedom comes.
Thanks so much, Jaden. We did just have some communications letting us know that we'll have about a 5-minute period where we won't be able to hear from the crew. So please go ahead, tell us, how was the view from the recovery vessel?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was mentioning earlier, Splashdown was nothing short of spectacular. And we were stationed about 1.5 nautical miles away from the splashdown zone and had great visuals here on the recovery vessel Megan. We actually saw a little of the smoke trail as the spacecraft was coming in, and then moments later we spotted those drogue chutes, and this was quickly followed by 4 healthy white and orange main parachutes. We then tracked Dragon all the way down as it slowly propelled into the ocean. And I think I speak for all of us on the ship when I say a new core memory was made today, and we are looking forward to having Crew 9 on board with us a little later.
Jaden, that is amazing. Now, obviously, we are watching it here on camera, and the landing conditions look pretty good, but how was it from your perspective? What is the sea state out there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've had optimal conditions for Splashdown, and today it is sunny and 63 degrees outside right now with clear skies, light winds, and calm seas. The sea looks absolutely beautiful right now, and light blue with a sun.
I would not want to have to
it.
be
and,
in there.
Okay, I think the crew's going to like what they
If
feel.
I was down there, I'm
the
same. I'm like, just open the window, open the door.
Thanks
Right,
so much, Jaden. It certainly looks like a
We're
beautiful
here.
day. Can you tell us a little
It's
bit about
already-
the journey of the
Maybe
recovery
it's like
forces to
17
get to
hours.
this point?
Let me breathe some fresh sea air.
Sure. So one unique aspect of this recovery was the onboard training on station conducted for Butch and Sunny to ensure they were ready to return on a
especially
Dragon
down on
spacecraft.
Earth now. I mean,
That training covered all aspects of their return, including nominal and contingency departures, deorbit burns, splashdown, and post-landing ops, which is what this team is preparing
to
for
me,
now.
that would be like waiting in a
As for
doctor's
the recovery
office.
teams themselves, we started the day taking a series
like,
of
dude, he's not
helicopters
literally
out to the
right
vessel.
there.
And as standard, the recovery
put me in there.
director and crew
Hey,
support
dude.
teams were on that first
Hey,
helicopter
some
out
cough syrup.
and took the time to get everything prepared on the ship. About 2 hours before splashdown, they deployed those fast boats and jet skis into the water. I was actually on the second helicopter out, and we were on the vessel about an hour and a half before splashdown and landed on top of the helicopter pad on the Megan. And the teams have been working diligently across their respective disciplines this week, executing what can
Still a
only be
cool thing.
described, in my point of view, as a logistical masterpiece, just ensuring every detail has been in place for Crew 9's return.
That is such great news. I'm so glad that you're able there to experience it in person. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what's next to retrieve the crew for the recovery personnel on board?
Yeah, Kate. So coming up next, Dragon will be hoisted into the on-deck translation system, or the nest, at the aft end of the ship, and then will be translated pretty quickly towards that egress platform. We'll perform another series of safety checks as final precautionary measures just to make sure there are no hypergolic vapors present before opening that side hatch. And then once that side hatch of the spacecraft is open, the crew will be assisted out of the capsule one by one from NASA and SpaceX.
Freedom, SpaceX, ComCheck.
Freedom's got you loud and clear.
Thanks, Nick. I've got you loud and clear as well. We have completed our forward link transition.
Well, that's a job to have right there. You're in the wetsuit, hooking up stuff to a hoisting rig, to a space capsule.
And Jaden, if you did just want to go ahead
People
and let
have
us know what is
interesting
next
jobs
to
that are really
retrieve the
cool.
crew, we are continuing to get some great views on our screen, but I know you have an even better view yourself.
Oh, yeah, Sandra, this view is absolutely unbeatable. So just to kind of finish off what I was saying is once that side hatch of the spacecraft is open, that crew will be assisted out of the capsule one by one from NASA and SpaceX medical personnel, where they will then head to the med bay. And after those medical checks, they will get on that first helicopter out and arrive at the airport, where they will then board a NASA plane and then head back to Houston, Texas at the Johnson Space Center to begin their post-flight period. And we're eager to see the Crew 9 astronauts back on Earth, and we'll keep you updated on every moment of this process. And with that, I'll toss it back over to you guys in Hawthorne.
Thank you so much. That was Jaden Jennings, NASA Public Affairs Officer, who watched Freedom splash down firsthand from the recovery vessel Megan. Thanks so much, Jaden. So we are continuing to get these great views on our screen here of Freedom. As we mentioned, at Splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. The recovery personnel are continuing to step through procedures to hoist Dragon onto the recovery vessel Megan there, which is now coming into view. You can see just how close Megan is at this point, and that's that helicopter pad that Jaden was just discussing, where the crew will fly off of onto the coast of Florida, and then eventually they'll fly back to Houston.
Just underneath that helicopter pad is that translation deck where we will see the nest once it is loaded up with the Dragon spacecraft on board. The nest will be translated to the forward end of the recovery vessel, and that is where our Crew 9 team members will egress from the Dragon spacecraft. Now, here on your screen, we can see dolphins actually, who want to come and play with Dragon. Now, one of the fast boats there in place, working to assist the recovery team member. It's incredible. I just love these views. We really see them even better in daytime, but just seeing the recovery team work in tandem to step through each step, to step through each operation. You know, obviously they're getting quick assists from the honorary part of the recovery team, those dolphins in the water there. Now, the recovery team member that is crawling around the Dragon spacecraft. Earlier we saw a view where it was like a spider monkey pose. We can see that individual now standing in the bucket where the main parachutes were stored while Dragon was on orbit.
Having a great time.
Obviously, those main parachutes were utilized for Splashdown today. They were deployed and cut from the Dragon capsule, and one of the fast boats one of the other fast boats of the recovery team working to pull those out of the water. Now, the recovery team member that is there working on top of the Dragon capsule. Earlier, we saw that person performing safety checks. Now we can see some harnessing being placed around the capsule. This harnessing is what will be used to lift the Dragon capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one or two.
I mean, that water just looks beautiful. We had ideal splashdown parameters today. Obviously, wave height, ne'er a concern. The weather is beautiful, as Jaden mentioned, in the 60s, sunny. Looking forward to seeing Crew 9 exit the capsule here shortly once they get hoisted onto the recovery vessel Megan.
We can see that recovery vessel slowly but surely closing the distance there between... Oh, dolphin cam back again. We can see that the Dragon capsule and the recovery vessel, that distance is closing. Again, this is just one more step as we continue to work recovery operations for Dragon Freedom.
Well, they picked the perfect day to do it.
And we anticipate the lift of the Dragon capsule to occur here in just a few minutes. Now, once all of the rigging is on the capsule and it's hooked up to the recovery vessel, we will see the hydraulic arm, which is that kind of like bridge-like structure there at the aft end of the recovery vessel. We'll see that articulate backwards, and that's a good sign that we're getting even closer to pulling the capsule out of the water. It will then move forward, and the capsule will be placed inside of what you can see there is basically a basket. We call it the nest, Dragon nest, where that's where the capsule will be placed in order for it to be translated to the forward end of the vessel and for the astronauts to egress.
And before that does take place, we'll have potentially views of the rigger go ahead and jump off of the spacecraft there.
That typically occurs when the spacecraft is a little bit closer to the recovery vessel, and we usually get a really good view of that particular operation from one of the onboard cameras from the recovery vessel. That is an operation that I have a lot of respect and admiration for, that individual that does that.
So again, Dragon continuing to get closer and closer to the recovery vessel, Megan. You see some of those ropes now coming into view as well. If you are just joining us, Crew 9 Splashdown off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. They're now working through procedures to hoist this spacecraft up onto the recovery vessel Megan.
We just saw that hydraulic arm get lowered into the lifting position. That arm will be the mechanism that is utilized to lift Dragon up and out of the water
terrible
and
camera
into the nest located there at the aft end of the recovery vessel.
And the recovery vessel being used today is, as we mentioned multiple times, is named Megan, but that's actually after NASA astronaut Megan McArthur, who flew on Crew 2 a couple of years ago. We're getting some views now from actually inside the boat.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This view is straight down the recovery vessel. That platform that was closest to the camera, that is the egress platform.
Freedom, rigging is almost complete. Approximately 5 minutes until capsule lift.
5 minutes.
Great news there from SpaceX Core. So about 5 minutes left until we see Dragon Freedom get lifted out of the water. That hydraulic arm, as I said before, is the mechanism that will lift it. It's quite swift, actually, the whole process of getting the spacecraft.
Brace for capsule lift.
Oh, there it goes.
There it goes, Dragon Freedom being lifted out of the water and onto our recovery vessel, Megan.
So do they know what's going on the whole time?
What, in the capsule?
The
Astronaut?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely no. Yeah. His ass into the ship, the proper name. I don't know. Seems like it to me. What do they call that? Aft? Port? Aft? I don't know nothing about a boat.
So once securely on...
Welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are completing final checks and stand by for translation to the egress platform.
Freedom copies.
Great news there, letting us know that Dragon Freedom has been successfully recovered from
and here's the thing, like when they come out, the gravity.
If you've just
like,
joined us, we have
how it feels to them already, because
on-time
gravity's already got to
splashdown
be
at
hitting
5:57 p.m. Eastern
Because
time.
gravity already has to
and
affect
we
them.
can
They haven't
now
tried to stand
see
up or anything
that
yet.
The
They have
water
to
recovery
feel
operations
the pull of the
are
Earth.
continuing to progress.
Gravity
The nest
on
where
their
the
bodies right
Dragon
That has to
spacecraft
be-
is located
that
is
has to
going
be something
to
else.
get moved forward. This will happen after one of the
I think she
recovery
definitely
crew
said
members
half
does some checks, and we'll also
But it
see
did
some
sound like
hosing.
ass.
Obviously, the spacecraft splashed down in salt water. Salt water is corrosive, and we want to try and rinse out as much of the salt water as possible to reduce that corrosion on the metallic structures. So we can see some guidance there being provided, really steering the spacecraft properly into the Dragon's nest.
And it's been 30 minutes since Dragon splashed down, and as you can see there, the spacecraft is already on board the recovery vessel Megan. Things continuing to move very smoothly today throughout the entire operations from the deorbit burn up until this point as well.
And Freedom, it looks like the positioning wasn't quite right, so they are working on repositioning the capsule in the nest now.
Okay, copy that. Thanks.
And with that, the team is just going to adjust the Dragon spacecraft a bit so that it's in the right position ahead of translating up a little bit closer ahead of the side hatch. So the team is now going to step through the procedures to ensure that that takes place.
While Dragon does fly itself autonomously, it clearly is unable to park itself autonomously. We want to make sure that the Dragon capsule is properly seated there
It's
in
like
that
playing
nest.
the claw game. This has been.
Once Dragon is fully seated in the nest, we'll probably see a bunch of that salt water come out from the bucket there located underneath the side hatch. See some salt water splash out. As I mentioned before, one of the recovery team members will begin hosing down the exterior of the spacecraft.
So you are continuing to get some great live views on your screen of Crew 9, which includes NASA astronauts
It is cool that we
Nick
get to
Hague,
see all
Sunny
of this
Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, who splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida, 2:57 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon.
Right there with everybody.
Now working to get that spacecraft situated in the nest.
Something we didn't always get to see.
Just making some final adjustments and tweaks to ensure that it's nice and secure.
There it is, sitting in the cradle.
So I wonder when they get reunited with their family.
Once the
I
spacecraft
don't know, because they have to go back to the coast and have to fly back to
and
Houston.
Secured and oriented correctly in the nest, Dragon will be moved into
then they
the
have to get
hangar
debriefed
located
there.
underneath that helipad
So
that we saw earlier from the aerial views during recovery.
All that has to be done. I just wonder how long that is, their debriefing, and how long.
All right, Freedom, looks like you are settled into the nest now.
Stuff, but
team is working through hypergol sweeps.
It's not really quarantined.
Well, I got it.
But they have to. I mean, they have to pass medical exams and all that.
Call out there telling us that the recovery team is doing the second round of those hypergolic sweeps. This helps ensure that everyone, all the recovery team members that are located basically right where this camera is located on, towards the forward end of the recovery vessel, that they will all be safe once the spacecraft is translated forward. So we're just doing some additional steps to make sure that the hypergolic propellant that is utilized for maneuvering the Dragon capsule while on orbit, making sure that none of those vapors are still present on the exterior of the capsule.
I get all the astronauts are professionals and stuff, but I would just be like, I'm tired.
That's right, and there are a variety of individuals on board the boat that help with recovery operations. Not only do we have the recovery personnel that you see here, but we also have a doctor that will check out the crew members as standard procedure. As with any spacecraft that is returning from space, we always perform a medical check with the crew. So you will see the crew come out of the capsule and be placed on stretchers, just like with the Soyuz landing and with all of our Dragon splashdowns. That is the nominal procedure.
Are they able to bathe and stuff up there?
No, where are you gonna get your germs from?
Huh?
Where is it dirty from? No dirt in space, you know that?
We'll stand by to see Dragon Freedom translate or scooch up a little bit closer to the camera angle that we're seeing right here. And then teams will step through procedures to get that side hatch opened. You see it right in the dead center of your screen there. It's kind of that rectangular shape. It has not been opened since Crew 9, which included Nick Hague and Alexander Gorbanov, launched back in September from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. So that will be the very first time that hatch is opened. Once docked to the International Space Station, crew enter through the top hatch, which was where the nose cone is now closed. That's the hatch that they actually utilized to go ahead and get inside the International Space Station.
I thought it was something like that.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. That is a gorgeous view of Crew Dragon Freedom successfully loaded onto the recovery ship. It's going to take about 10 minutes for us to see that hatch open and that shot inside of Dragon, where we can see Butch and Sunny and Crew 9 all on board safely home. some of clearly the most incredible views we've seen of a Dragon recovery. We had the Dolphin recovery crew show up as well, and definitely make sure you stay tuned for some of these shots as clips on the channel. But if it was your first time here, well, I know there's many new people. Welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad Network, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And if you haven't yet, take a moment, hit the subscribe button. It's free to do so. If you enjoy space, we bring you full live coverage of almost every launch from around the world. We bring you docking, undocking, and return to Earth coverage, live mission trackers in orbit to the moon and Mars, and more, all right here on the Launchpad Network, because we really do believe that space is better together, and we're thankful to have you here. We got people tuning in from all over the world. I know we did it earlier, but let us know in the chat where you're watching from. There are still new people here. We're going to continue to follow along and listen in to NASA and SpaceX for updates as we await Crew Dragon Freedom to be transitioned across the deck of the recovery ship towards those two little chain links you can see there. That is where they will go. The hatch will be opened, and we will welcome the crew officially home. It's going to take generally roughly about 8 minutes. It's always a little different with each mission. They did have to reseat the Dragon in the Dragon nest before they do this transition, but it definitely does look like they're getting ready to begin that translation of Dragon towards the welcome back platform area. If you guys have questions, you can send them in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and I'll try to work on answering some of those live in the chat while we continue to follow along. If you enjoy space, though, make sure you bookmark tlpnetwork.com. That's where you can check out our launch calendar to stay up to date on the next launches and whether we will have live coverage of them or not. We also have our news area where you can stay up to date on the latest space news. We are 1 day, 7 hours, 27 minutes from the next launch, which is NROL 157, launching out of Vandenberg in California. Chick Place, thank you so much for that super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that support. We got people tuning in all over the world. It's great to have you here. My is in San Diego. We got Alaska in Alaska. We got Mendocino in Sweden. Welcome. Nathaniel's in Kodiak, Alaska. Tamaris. And there is translation happening of Crew Dragon Freedom. You can see them spraying it down, making sure that it is all safe and ready for that crew to get right up next close to it. RM's in El Salvador, Todd's in Washington, John's in Rochester, Colin's in Jacksonville. Let's listen back in to NASA and SpaceX as we get ready to welcome home Crew 9 and Butch and Sunny as their mission finally comes to an end.
Water, so we're trying to rinse off as much of that salt water as possible. And we can see the spacecraft continuing to move closer and closer to that recovery deck.
Freedom, the crew is working on side hatch opening now. Expect hatch open in about 2 minutes.
Okay, copy that. And Kira, just wanted to say that you guys, you and the team did an awesome job, both uphill and downhill. Just really, really impressed. Thank you.
They'll be having to do a ton of interviews
Nick.
for
It's
sure.
been an honor.
You know, just
this is a pretty exciting moment coming up. We are working to open the side hatch. One thing that may not be obvious from just looking at the spacecraft here is that this side hatch that we're about to open, the last time it was open was when this spacecraft was at the launch pad. This side hatch is what is used for initial capsule ingress and final capsule egress, but all comings and goings from the spacecraft while it is on board the space station are from the forward hatch, which is located at the top of the spacecraft under that nose cone. So this is a pretty exciting moment because it will be the crew's first breath of fresh air since boarding their ships at the start of their journeys last year.
Jeez.
And the very first person that will have the opportunity to say hello to the crew once that hatch is open is a SpaceX medical recovery personnel representative. Then we'll see procedures take place to remove...
They've all got masks on and everything.
to remove the footrests of Dragon. That will just help the recovery personnel get a little bit more room to access the crew and help get them out of the spacecraft.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It
Safety
feels bad.
is, once again,
really
top
knocking.
priority here, and removing those footrests from all 4 seats
Agreed, dude.
will be
Agreed.
helpful as a recovery, as a SpaceX recovery team member will actually go into the capsule, into Dragon Freedom to help the crew members unbuckle and stand up, and essentially we'll also see a fun little slide be put in place to help the crew members exit the spacecraft safely. So
It's
yeah,
gotta be
we're
cool to
going
be
to
a part of
remove
something like
all
that,
of
be a
those,
part
all
of the
4 of those
mission,
footrests
control
to
crew,
basically
and
give a little bit more
all those
working
people to
room
make that
inside the
happen.
spacecraft.
That's right. And we did hear the go for that hatch opening, so we're just a couple minutes away from being able to see that. And then we might be able to get the chance to see a couple of views inside of the Dragon and see the crew following their splashdown.
All right.
Now, opening that side hatch isn't quite like opening, the door to your car. We have
I
to
bet.
depress
It
the
has to.
seal around the side hatch,
It has
as
to.
well as, we'll now see them open that side hatch up.
All these people are fit except for that one guy down there on the bottom left. That'd be me. I'd be that guy.
Were they trying to get the hatch up? Or
Yep. Here it comes.
And there you have it. The side hatch is open for the first time since September.
Like, dude, don't come in here. We want to come out there. Like, what the hell? We want to be where you just came from.
We can see some of the protective equipment there that was brought into frame that will help protect the edge of the side hatch, one from any potential damage. Oh, we can see the recovery crew member there taking photos of the side hatch seal. This is part of the standard operation for recovery. These photos will get saved into our
Capsule's a little bit bigger
procedure.
than you think it is, I guess.
We'll then install that protective frame around the side hatch. This helps to ensure that the side hatch itself,
Don't take any
the
chances.
edges of it incur no damage while crew members are coming out from the spacecraft.
Yeah, they just take.
If you missed it, there was also a recovery team member that went inside. So there are now 5 people on board the Dragon spacecraft.
And if you are just joining us, it has not yet even been an hour since Crew 9 splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time. The crew is now on board the recovery vessel Megan, and the hatch is open. The next major milestone that we'll see is when the crew will actually egress or exit the spacecraft. But before that, they'll continue to, the recovery personnel rather, will continue to install that protective area around the hatch and then remove the footrests. So we're a couple minutes away from seeing the crew egress, but not too long away.
I want to see them getting out of there walking. That's what I want to do.
We'll probably see those footrests being handed out here in the near future, as I mentioned before.
Dang, really?
Oh, of
Horrible
course, we
crane
got to
operator
get
did that
a
for 27
well-documented
years
photo
with the
of the moment.
Stand still, dang.
Although we can't see it from here, I'm pretty sure there are 4
Just
smiles
the
on board right now.
precision you guys have
And we
operating
did hear
those
that report
things.
out from the commander Nick Hague following
Like, to
splashdown.
me, I wouldn't know the
there were
difference,
four,
but I know
four
you
smiles
guys
as far as he could
have to
see.
know.
Yeah,
from
capsule
doing
full
that
of
job
grins.
for all those years.
Now, generally speaking,
And
There you go.
there we do see Crew 9, some happy waves, smiles all around.
That
back
Russian
on
guys like,
Earth.
dude, y'all take y'all's time in America. Y'all just taking y'all's time in America. I want some Taco Bell, man.
generally speaking, we have the individuals in the 2 center seats of the spacecraft exit first. You might hear us refer
So you
to
saw
this
how
as
plain it looked in there.
the
It
exit
was
process
like-
as egress. It's just
You
another term
expect all
for
this equipment,
exiting the
dashboards, all the
spacecraft.
stuff everywhere
Generally
around them,
speaking,
but it
we
was
most of the time have the 2 center seats egress first, as it makes moving around inside the capsule a little bit easier. We can see the tablets that were previously located on the upper leg of the crew members. We can see those being handed out to the recovery team. Those were taken off prior to the entry phase to spacecraft reentry. Those had to be stored and secured prior to dynamic operations.
It looks like we are starting to see the footrests also be removed.
So
I just
what?
saw one there on the screen.
Stuff they had
There
to
are
store
4,
from
of course,
inside
one
of
for
it.
each crew member.
Yeah, I realize there's stuff they brought back, the tablets, things like that. There's also framing and stuff that holds a lot of the components together so
Those
you can get out of
footrests
it.
are made out of carbon fiber and are actually sized appropriately for each crew member, as everybody has different measurements and different leg lengths. Same goes for the armrests and the bucket length of each seat. We size those appropriately for the crew members and to ensure their comfort and safety. I believe we just saw the little ramp that is used to help slide the crew members out from inside the spacecraft.
This
And once
I
the
like.
crew does exit Dragon Freedom, they will be placed on to a stretcher to go to a medical bay for medical checkouts. This is standard procedure for all Dragon spacecraft flights that Splashdown crewed, as well as for our Soyuz spacecraft that land in Kazakhstan.
We could see the exterior of Dragon Freedom quite clearly in this shot, and it's such a beautiful sight. I personally prefer the capsule when it has some of that charring from atmospheric reentry. It is the signature sign of a capsule that has returned to Earth.
Expect hatch open in about 2 minutes.
This is what I meant to do it from, this right here.
Continuing to stand by for our first crew member to egress or exit for Dragon
There's a
Freedom
long
following their
lag between
splashdown
what I
at
see and
2:57
what it
p.m.
puts out
Pacific
live.
time.
Such a long lag.
Dragon undocked from the International Space Station at 10:05 p.m. Pacific just yesterday, so it was about 17 hours of phasing.
I'm telling you, for the ones that were up there all that time, this
And
has got to
while
be an
on
odd
board the
feeling.
International Space Station, Crew 9 contributed to 900 hours of science, over 150 research experiments and investigations, making great use of the microgravity lab of the International Space Station, which celebrates 25 years of continuous human presence this November.
I did hear him say that they do put them on stretchers.
Yeah, I figure they must.
Looks like we're about to get our first crew member here upon egress of the Dragon spacecraft.
Yep, there's a stretcher right there.
So we are standing by for that egress. Outside of Dragon, you do see one of those stretchers. This is the expected procedure, as the crew will be taken to medical facilities following their exit from Dragon.
Meanwhile, back on the ISS.
There's one of them.
We can see folks on board clapping as our first crew member.
And that is NASA astronaut Nick Hague, commander of Crew 9. Now out of Crew Dragon Freedom. Some smiles, thumbs
There
up,
you
and
go.
a wave. Can't get any better than that.
Yeah, that is one happy
Those are
camper,
cool
that's for
looking
sure.
space outfits.
As we said
So
before,
much different what they
it
used to look
is
like.
standard procedure for all of our long-duration crew members to receive assistance upon egressing from the spacecraft. We basically help them move off of the
Now he's off
recovery
down the
deck and
hallway into
into
the medical bay.
the private medical quarters for their initial consultation with the SpaceX flight surgeon. So we'll see that take place for all 4 of our crew members today.
And we are standing by for the next crew member to exit Freedom.
I wonder. This is a terrible thought, too. It's not terrible. But I wonder when they're going to do the experiment of getting pregnant in space.
Oh my.
Conceiving?
You thought
What? And seriously, because you figure, because with bases
so you
having to
literally
go.
talking about having sex in space.
Well, I'm actually talking about conceiving a child in space. Not just about the sex, it's about the conceiving of a child in space. Because you figure if they're going to moon and having a moon base, and eventually we go to Mars and have bases on Mars. And
Next
cities
step
on Mars,
out of the
I mean,
capsule, we
you might be talking
expect
about 100 or 200
Roscosmos
years in the future.
cosmonaut
That's still something that they're
Alexander
going to have to figure
Gorbanov
out. What does
first
that mean?
space
What does
flight.
that look like?
spent
Yeah.
I mean, how does it affect
171 days in
embryos
space
and
alongside
sperm and
NASA
all that
astronaut
stuff
Nick
when you're
Hague.
trying to conceive?
Looks like we're getting some
space.
cheers and clapping on
Because of the
board
lack of gravity, for that matter.
as Alexander is slid down the little ramp and placed into the mobility aid. Once again, big smile.
That I don't think you would ever be able to have a baby in space.
Well, you wouldn't. I don't know if you could or not until they actually had artificial gravity. Became a thing.
Yeah.
Until
Now, the two
advent
crew
of that.
members remaining in Dragon are NASA astronauts Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore. They completed 286 days in space.
286 days in space.
One of the remaining footrests being removed from the
286.
Dragon spacecraft.
About 9 months then.
As I said before, we generally try to have the crew members that are located in the 2 center seats aboard Dragon, and we like to have them egress first if possible, as it creates a little bit more movable working room inside the spacecraft. There is a recovery crew member inside that is helping all of our Crew 9 crew egress or exit from the spacecraft.
Look how calm that sea is. There's no rocking going on or anything.
We are standing by for the next crew member to egress or exit Crew Dragon Freedom following the splashdown not even an hour ago at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time. Really have the recovery operations down pretty quick at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think that, just 5 years ago when we were doing the initial demonstration missions of the Dragon for Crew Dragon that now we're under about 30 minutes for, to retrieve the spacecraft from the water, and just several minutes here while it's been on board, and to get everyone, really to get that side hatch open.
So this capsule was in development 5 years ago. They were testing it out. You know, this is a SpaceX capsule. It's not NASA.
For those of you that have just recently joined, the Dragon had an on-time splashdown. Oh, it looks like we're getting our next crew member here. That is none other than Sunny Williams. Big smile, big waves. She, like her other crew members, now will be assisted onto the mobility aid.
She's like, whoa, this got heavy. 286 days without gravity. Holy crap.
There we have it. Some waves, some thumbs up, and some smiles.
She's happy.
Definitely seems to be a theme among all recovery operations.
They're all happy to be home.
Absolutely. And of course, that leaves NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore inside Dragon in seat 4.
We got it quick. Wasn't no wasted time on this one.
No.
He's like, I beat my stretcher out here. Y'all got to come on.
We're getting some views of him now as he egresses or exits the spacecraft.
Once again, some elation and cheers there from Butch Wilmore. As we mentioned before, returning to Earth from coming from a microgravity environment can wreak havoc on the body. So it is customary and just standard procedure for all of our long-term space residents to get assistance once they are back on board the recovery vessel.
Well, now that Nick, Butch, Sunny, and Alexander are safely back home on Earth and getting checked out by the NASA medical team, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their return. The Crew 9 mission began a little differently than usual since Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams were already aboard the space station when Nick Hague.
And there we have it. Butch and Sunny and Crew 9 are home as SpaceX and NASA wrap up their live coverage. I want to say a big thank you to all of you for joining us.
That was pretty cool, guys. Thanks for joining us here as we did this today. That was interesting. That was really interesting, watching all that. What a long live, and it actually worked an hour and 12 minutes. Good Lord. What I understand is the capsule is full of supplies when it arrived on the space station, pretty much empty except for the astronauts. Yeah. That's what I understood too. Because I know when I watched it the other night, as they were unloading it, they were unloading a lot of stuff off of it. So, hey, cool. That was cool. Zen, appreciate you hanging in there with me today, buddy. I do. As we get back on track to do some more reactions and stuff like that and do some of this kind of fun stuff. It's been a while, few weeks, but we're back on track. We will be this week and get some more stuff in. I appreciate it, bud. See you in the chat. Hit me up. Guys,